My name is Chelsea Mitchell. I'm 34 years old, and I'm the head nurse at Flagstaff Medical Center. The moment everything cracked open didn't happen in an emergency room or during a night shift with alarms screaming. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon, in my parents' backyard, while smoke drifted lazily from a grill. My mom looked straight at me, smiled like she was saying something harmless, and said, "Your brother bought a house and a new truck, and you're still renting after all these years?" The smell of charred meat hung in the air. Someone laughed softly. And then the world went still. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I smiled slowly and said, "Then from now on, he can cover all the family expenses." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was structural. The kind that makes people realize the ground under them isn't solid anymore. My dad froze with his fork halfway to his mouth. My brother's grin vanished. And my mom's eyes widened, just slightly, like she'd stepped onto ice without realizing how thin it was. That single sentence changed everything. But to understand why it landed the way it did, you need to know what came before. I grew up in Flagstaff, Arizona, surrounded by pine trees, cold winters, and the quiet expectation that I would be fine. My parents' log house sat just outside town, tucked into the forest. It looked warm and stable from the outside, the kind of place people imagined as a good, solid family home. Inside, though, there was a hierarchy. And from the day my brother Parker was born, everyone knew exactly where they stood. Parker was 3 years younger than me, but somehow always larger in the room. Louder, more celebrated, more promising. When he turned 16, my dad surprised him with a brand new red Chevy pickup. Not used, not mostly paid off, brand new. Neighbors came out to admire it while Parker revved the engine in the driveway, laughing like the world had already decided to take care of him. I watched from the porch, calculating how many diner shifts I needed to afford a used Honda that stalled if you braked too hard. Dad slapped Parker on the back and said, "Natural behind the wheel." He never once asked how my car was running. College came next. Parker enrolled, partied through a semester, and dropped out. Dad called it practical. "He's not built for classrooms," he told everyone. "Real-world instincts, that's where the money is." Dad helped him land a sales job through a friend. Meanwhile, I worked double shifts, paid my own tuition, and graduated top of my nursing class. Dad nodded once and said, "Steady work." That's good. That was it. Birthdays made the difference louder. Parker got backyard parties, rented grills, custom cakes shaped like trucks or fishing gear. My 18th birthday passed with a grocery store cake and a card signed only by my mom. Dad said he had a work emergency. He took Parker fishing the next weekend. I studied for my boards alone. By my late 20s, the pattern wasn't painful anymore. It was background noise. Parker drifted between jobs and opportunities, always landing softly. Dad called it resilience, Mom called it faith. I became a nurse, then a charge nurse, then head nurse, overseeing an entire floor. At work, people trusted me with lives. At home, my achievements registered as expected maintenance, like paying the electric bill. Holidays amplified everything. Thanksgiving meant Parker arriving late, full of stories about deals in progress. Dad carved the turkey like he was narrating a documentary about Parker's negotiating skills. Christmas gifts leaned heavily in Parker's direction. Tools for garages he didn't have, subscriptions to investment newsletters, gadgets for hobbies he'd already abandoned. I asked for practical things, new scrubs, a better stethoscope. They arrived wrapped neatly, quietly. The favoritism was rarely loud. It lived in small things. Mom saving the best cuts of meat for Parker's plate. Dad fixing Parker's computer but telling me to just take yours to a shop. Conversations that drifted naturally toward Parker's future, while mine sat, finished, and uninteresting. I learned early not to ask. I learned to handle my own bills, my own repairs, my own emergencies. By the time I was 30, I didn't expect help, but I also didn't expect to be compared, which is why that barbecue stung the way it did. It was late afternoon. The grill hissed. Pine needles rattled in the wind. The deck glowed under string lights. Parker lounged in a low chair, scrolling on his phone. Mom fluttered between dishes. Dad leaned against the railing, arms crossed, satisfied. Mom beamed as she said, "Parker closed on that ranch house in Kachina Village yesterday. 3 bedrooms, big kitchen, and he got a new Ford," Dad added proudly, "paid cash." Parker shrugged, like success was something that just happened around him. I focused on the potatoes, turning them carefully so they didn't burn. Then Dad turned to me. "Still renting, Chelsea? No house, no car, nothing to your name after all this time." He laughed, expecting agreement. That was when I set the tongs down. That was when I smiled and said the sentence that split the day in 2. The meal that followed tasted like obligation. No one addressed what I'd said. Conversation stayed light and brittle. Dessert came out, Parker left early. And when I walked to my car, the mountain air felt sharper than usual. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the first crack. The second came weeks later, on a rainy night, when my phone rang after a 12-hour shift. It was my mom. She was crying. She told me the house was in danger. Old tax debts from years ago. Liens, notices. Parker took the phone next. Calm, assured. Said he had savings. Said he just needed temporary help. And without realizing it, I stepped back into a role I'd been groomed for my entire life. The reliable one. The quiet one. The one who fixes things. I opened my banking app, and I sent the first transfer. I told myself it was temporary. That was the word everyone used. Temporary help. Temporary stress. Temporary sacrifice. The first transfer went out the next morning, right before I left for work. $4,000. I watched the confirmation screen blink green, then disappear. Parker texted a thumbs up emoji a few hours later. "Got it. Thanks." No details, no plan, just thanks. Mom didn't call. Dad didn't text. I assumed they were overwhelmed. I assumed silence meant relief. I worked a double shift that day. 2 admissions back to back, 1 code blue, a resident nurse in tears over a medication error that wasn't even hers. By the time I got home, my feet ached and my brain buzzed with unfinished charting. I microwaved leftovers and collapsed onto the couch, telling myself the money had gone somewhere important. The second month arrived faster than I expected. Mom called a few days before payday, her voice softer this time, less frantic. "Things are stabilizing," she said. "Parker's handling it." That phrase again. Parker's handling it. No numbers, no paperwork, no proof. I sent the money anyway. 4,000 out. Another thumbs up back. I created a spreadsheet to track the transfers. Not because I didn't trust them. I told myself just because that's what responsible people do. By the 3rd month, my lifestyle started to shift. I swapped brand name groceries for store labels. Canceled a weekend trip with coworkers. Picked up extra night shifts, just in case. At work, people assumed I was chasing another certification. I didn't correct them. Parker's updates remained minimal. Deposited. Got it. Busy week. Mom mentioned once that the foreclosure notices had stopped coming. She credited Parker immediately, like a reflex. Dad texted me about grill maintenance. Nothing about money. By the 4th month, I asked Parker for documentation. "Can you send me a payoff statement? Or something from the county?" "Yeah," he said. "I'll scan it soon. The office is slow." The 5th month came with a surprise hospital bill for Mom. Routine checkup, insurance gap. I paid it without hesitation. I sent the transfer. Another thumbs up. No one asked how I was doing. No one asked if I needed help. The routine set in quietly. Alarm at 5. Coffee. Transfer before clock-in. 12 hours of controlled chaos. Home. Sleep. By the 6th month, my savings account no longer felt like a safety net. It felt like a timer. Halfway through the year, I'd sent nearly $50,000. I started asking questions again. Where are we on the balance? How much is left? Can I see the lien release? Answers stayed vague. Almost there. Complicated paperwork. Trust me. Mom deflected. Dad changed the subject. Parker reassured. "Timing is everything," he said once. "You wouldn't understand unless you were in investments." That stung more than it should have. By the 8th month, I was floating daily expenses on a credit card. Not recklessly, carefully, strategically. The way women do when they don't want to admit they're stretched thin. I told myself it was still worth it. Family comes first. That's what they'd always said. Then, one slow night at the nurse's station, everything shifted. I was scrolling mindlessly, waiting on lab results, when Parker's Instagram story popped up, a close-up of a Rolex on his wrist. No caption, just a clock emoji. My chest tightened. The next post showed golf gear brand new laid out neatly on a hotel bed. Then a video. Wide open land, big sky, Parker laughing in camouflage. Montana. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was sponsored. Maybe I was paranoid. But something felt off. That night, I downloaded my bank statements. I spread them across my kitchen table under the single overhead light, pages overlapping like a deck of cards. Every transfer landed in Parker's personal account. Every one, no sub-accounts, no escrow, no government payments. Then I followed the money forward. Retail charges, travel bookings, sporting goods stores, jewelry. The dates aligned too cleanly to ignore. The Rolex post, 2 days after my largest transfer. The Montana trip, same week. I felt something cold settle behind my ribs. The next morning, I ran into Leah Kim at the downtown market. We'd worked together years ago. Over coffee, she mentioned casually, "Hey, I saw your brother at the pro shop last month. Dropped serious money on custom clubs." I nodded slowly, my hands wrapped tight around the mug. That weekend, my friend Shelby came over with her laptop. We didn't speculate. We didn't dramatize. We followed the numbers. Public records still showed the lien active. No payments, no negotiations, just time passing. When we finished, the truth sat neatly stacked in a folder on my table. Facts, dates, receipts. No room for interpretation. I didn't cry. I felt clear. And clarity, I would learn, is far more dangerous than anger. I didn't confront them right away. That surprised even me. I slept on it twice. Not because I doubted the facts, but because I needed to be certain of myself. I'd spent most of my life second-guessing my instincts around my family, trained to believe that discomfort meant disloyalty and questions meant ingratitude. This time, I let the evidence sit. I went to work. I led rounds. I corrected charts. I stabilized patients. I moved through 12-hour shifts with the same steady competence I always had, while a quiet decision formed underneath everything. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to state reality and step back. The following Saturday, I drove up to my parents' house, the same log house, same gravel driveway, same pine shadows stretching across the yard like nothing had changed. Dad was on the porch with a beer. Mom moved inside, arranging flowers. Parker lounged on the swing, phone in hand, relaxed. They looked comfortable. That, more than anything, hardened me. I walked up without smiling and set the binder on the outdoor table between us. The sound it made, paper hitting wood, was heavier than it should have been. No one spoke at first. Parker broke the silence with a laugh that didn't quite land. "What's this, Chelsea? Tax season already?" He reached for the binder. I placed my hand flat on the cover and stopped him. Mom's smile faltered. Dad straightened. I opened to the first page and slid the statements toward Parker. Transfers, dates, amounts. His eyes flicked across the columns. I watched color drain from his face just slightly before he recovered. "That's investment capital," he said quickly. "I told you, liquidity matters." I turned the page. Photos, timestamps, purchases, the Rolex, the golf clubs, flight confirmations. Dad leaned forward, squinting. Mom put a hand on Parker's shoulder. "These are examples," Parker insisted, voice rising. "You're cherry-picking." I flipped to the last section. Public records. The lien still active. No payments made. The air changed. Dad slammed his hand on the table. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, glaring at me. "You're just jealous. Always have been." There it was. Not concern. Not confusion. Jealousy. Mom nodded, clutching Parker's arm. "He's under pressure. You don't understand how complex this is." I closed the binder calmly. "I'm stopping the transfers," I said. "Effective today." Parker shot to his feet, chair scraping back. "You can't do that," he said, panic breaking through his confidence. "The plan falls apart without bridge funding." Dad stood too, positioning himself beside Parker like a shield. "After everything we've done for you," he said coldly, "this is how you repay us? You're selfish." I looked at them, really looked. 3 people standing together, one truth on the table. And no one willing to touch it. 30 days, Parker pleaded. "Just give me 30 days. Dad cut him off. "She's already decided to sabotage you." Mom pulled Parker into her chest like he was still a child. I picked up the binder. No one reached for it. No one asked to look again. That was the answer. I walked back to my car as the porch light flickered on behind me. I didn't turn around. The gravel shifted under my tires as I pulled away, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt done. 3 months later, I packed the last box into my car before sunrise. Flagstaff was quiet that morning. The pines stood still, the air thin and cold. I paused for a moment in the parking lot of my apartment, looking at the building that had held me together through exhaustion, doubt, and a year of quiet financial bleeding. I didn't leave a forwarding address. I changed my number the night before, closed the shared email account my mom used just in case, set up a P.O. box for anything official. No dramatic goodbye. No final argument. Just motion. Denver rose slowly as I drove east, the skyline sharp against the morning light. A promotion had opened there. Bigger hospital, wider authority, better pay. The kind of opportunity that used to feel intimidating and now felt overdue. I took it without asking anyone's opinion. The first week in my new apartment, the silence felt strange. No family calls, no subtle pressure, no sense that I owed someone a piece of every paycheck. At work, my role expanded immediately. More responsibility, more trust. No one questioned whether I deserved it. I rebuilt my savings methodically, redirected what used to disappear every month into retirement accounts, emergency funds, therapy sessions that helped me untangle decades of learned obligation. Then the consequences unfolded. Quietly, predictably. The house went first. Without my transfers, the timeline they'd been avoiding finally arrived. Notices became deadlines. Deadlines became action. Parker scrambled. Loan applications went unanswered. Credit checks revealed what confidence had hidden. Dad tried negotiating extensions, citing family hardship, but penalties compounded without mercy. The house sold at auction. A young couple bought it at market value, planning renovations and weekend hikes. My parents packed what they could. The rest went into storage, then charity, then nowhere. They moved into a 1-bedroom rental above a laundromat on the edge of town. No deck, no view, just parking lot lights and the hum of machines late into the night. Dad sold tools from the garage to cover deposits. Mom picked up inventory shifts at a craft store. Their days filled with practical decisions instead of pride. Parker landed part-time work stocking shelves at a big box store. Evenings and weekends, bus commute, the Rolex disappeared, the golf club showed up online for quick cash. He talked about night classes, certifications, starting over. Progress was slow, real. And for the first time, unsupported. I heard all of this secondhand, through old coworkers, through acquaintances who meant well. I didn't correct them. I didn't comment. My life moved forward without intersecting theirs. Weekends in Denver meant coffee with colleagues who respected my time, hikes in the foothills, a kitchen stocked without checking prices first. Holidays passed quietly. No cards, no invitations, no expectations. The silence didn't feel cruel. It felt clean. One evening, about a year later, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights come on. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't listen to the message. Because here's the truth I learned too late and want other women to learn sooner. Being reliable does not mean being responsible for everyone else's consequences. Being capable does not mean being available for exploitation. And family is not defined by blood, but by who respects your boundaries when you set them. I didn't destroy my family. I stopped propping up a lie. And when I finally stepped away, I didn't fall apart. I stood taller.